The Deathworlders had been traveling through the galaxy for centuries, conquering and destroying every planet they came across. Their reputation was feared by all. These aliens were known as the deadliest species in the universe. No one had ever stood a chance against them, and they had no reason to believe anything would change now. They were strong, fast, and smarter than any other species. Earth, they thought, would be no different. When their ships appeared in the sky above Earth, the humans had no idea what was coming. The Deathworlders' massive fleet cast a shadow over entire cities. Their ships were huge and terrifying, sharp, black, and seemingly indestructible. As they landed on Earth, the Deathworlders felt a rush of confidence. They were here to claim the planet for themselves, and nothing could stop them. "Let's show them who's in charge," said the leader of the Deathworlders, his voice cold and firm. His name was Carrick, and he had led the most successful campaigns across the galaxy. His people trusted him, and he trusted in their power. Earth would fall under their rule, just like every other planet before it. The Deathworlders had studied Earth before arriving. They knew the planet's population was weak and divided. The humans were small and fragile compared to the mighty Deathworlders. Earth's technology was primitive, and their military was unorganized. They believed the planet would be easy to conquer. There was no reason to fear them. They were the Deathworlders, the ultimate warriors. But as Carrick stepped off his ship and onto the soil of Earth, something felt wrong. At first, he couldn't place it. The air was different, thicker, somehow. He looked around at the humans who had gathered to witness the invasion. They were scared, yes, but there was something else in their eyes. It wasn't fear. It was something Carrick had never seen before in the many worlds he had conquered: defiance. "Prepare for the invasion," Carrick ordered his troops, shaking off the feeling. "These humans will fall just like the rest." The Deathworlders moved quickly, spreading out to cities across the world. They began their assault, using their superior strength and advanced weapons to destroy everything in their path. Buildings were torn apart in seconds. Humans screamed and ran, but there was no escape. The Deathworlders were unstoppable. But even as the destruction began, the humans didn't give up. They fought back. At first it was small, scattered groups of resistance, but Carrick began to notice something strange. The humans weren't simply fleeing. They were organizing. They were coming together. "Impossible," Carrick muttered to himself. "How can they resist us?" His thoughts were interrupted by a loud noise. A human vehicle appeared from behind a destroyed building. The vehicle wasn't much, just a car, really. But what happened next surprised Carrick and his entire army. The car slammed into one of the Deathworlders, throwing him into the air. The human inside the car didn't hesitate for a second. He quickly jumped out, armed with a strange device in his hand. It fired a bright beam of energy that hit one of the Deathworlder ships, causing it to explode in the sky. The humans were fighting back in ways Carrick had never expected. They were using simple, yet effective tactics, like hit-and-run attacks. They seemed to be everywhere, and each time the Deathworlders thought they had destroyed one group, another group would pop up. The humans didn't stop. Carrick's anger grew. This was supposed to be easy. The humans weren't supposed to be a challenge. They were supposed to cower before the might of the Deathworlders, but they were fighting back. And they were smart. "They must have some kind of hidden power," Carrick said, his voice filled with confusion. "Prepare for Phase 2. We'll crush them with everything we have." But even as he spoke, something else was happening. Far off in the distance, another group of humans had gathered. They were preparing something. Carrick wasn't sure what it was, but he could feel the tension in the air. It was as if the humans were preparing for something bigger, something more dangerous. He turned to his second-in-command, a tall, armored Deathworlder named Zara. "Get a team over there," Carrick ordered. "Find out what they're planning. I want to know everything." Zara nodded and quickly relayed the orders. As the Deathworlders marched toward the group of humans, Carrick couldn't shake the feeling that he had underestimated them. These weren't just helpless creatures. They were fighting for their home. And somehow, Carrick knew that this wouldn't be as easy as he had thought. He looked out at the battlefield, his mind racing. The humans were not the weaklings they appeared to be. There was something else about them, something he couldn't understand. The Deathworlders might be the most powerful species in the galaxy, but for the first time, Carrick began to wonder if they were facing an enemy they couldn't defeat. And that thought filled him with fear. Carrick's army was stunned. What should have been an easy victory was turning into a nightmare. The Deathworlders, the galaxy's most feared warriors, had never encountered resistance like this before. And it was coming from the humans, those fragile, weak creatures they had so confidently believed would fall under their power. The Deathworlders had wiped out cities, torn through military bases, and crushed human defenses. But the humans weren't just sitting back. No, they were doing something unexpected. They were fighting in ways the Deathworlders had never seen, using their environment, their knowledge of the land, and their creativity to their advantage. Carrick was furious. He'd never had to deal with an enemy who thought on their feet like this. As he stood in the wreckage of a once vibrant city, watching the humans regroup, he turned to Zara, his trusted second-in-command. "What are they doing?" Carrick growled. Zara, the tall and battle-hardened Deathworlder, scanned the horizon. "They're preparing something. I don't know what it is, but it looks like they're setting traps, waiting for us to come to them." Carrick clenched his fists in frustration. The humans were unpredictable. They weren't fighting like typical creatures. They didn't have the advanced technology of the Deathworlders, but they were using clever tactics that were making Carrick question everything he thought he knew about war. "They're not just fighting," Zara added. "They're learning. And they're learning quickly." That was the most troubling part. In Carrick's experience, enemies were supposed to break, panic, and flee when they saw the might of the Deathworlders. Instead, the humans were getting smarter with each battle. And more importantly, they were beginning to fight as one, something the Deathworlders had never experienced. Carrick and his troops had underestimated humanity. They had thought of humans as simple-minded, weak beings, easily crushed by brute strength. But now, the humans were showing a resilience that even Carrick could not ignore. In a small town on the outskirts of the main battlefield, a group of humans had set up a secret hideout. They had spent days building underground tunnels, preparing defenses, and gathering supplies. Their plan wasn't to attack head-on. No, they were playing the long game. One human, a man named Jacob, stood at the head of a small group of survivors. They had only a few weapons, nothing compared to the advanced technology of the Deathworlders. But Jacob's mind was his weapon. He knew how to use what they had to create confusion and fear in the hearts of their enemies. "We can't keep running," Jacob said, turning to his team. "It's time to fight back." His plan wasn't to destroy the Deathworlders' entire army, not yet. It was to wear them down, to make them question their own strength. Jacob had studied the Deathworlders' movements and their tactics. He knew that if they could hit them at the right moment, the Deathworlders would begin to doubt themselves. The humans had been careful. They didn't attack unless they knew they had the upper hand. They used guerrilla tactics, small, quick strikes that made the Deathworlders constantly look over their shoulders. Jacob's group had learned how to outsmart their invaders, using the Deathworlders' own strengths against them. But what really set Jacob's group apart was their unity. The humans might not have been as strong or as advanced, but they had something far more powerful. They had heart. They fought for each other. They fought for Earth. They fought for survival. As Carrick watched the humans continue their strange tactics, his frustration deepened. He wasn't used to feeling uncertain. He wasn't used to enemies that didn't break. But these humans, they were different. They were smart. They were fighting like they had nothing to lose. "Zara," Carrick said, his voice cold but filled with determination. "We'll need to escalate. We can't allow them to keep doing this." Zara nodded, but there was a hint of doubt in her eyes. What if we can't defeat them this time? Carrick's eyes narrowed. He had no intention of losing to these creatures. We'll make them regret ever fighting back. But as the Deathworlders prepared for their next move, the humans had already begun their own counterattack. Jacob and his group weren't just defending anymore. They were taking the fight to the Deathworlders. They had gathered allies, and their numbers were growing. Human soldiers, scientists, and civilians. Everyone was joining the resistance. And with each passing day, the Deathworlders were realizing that this wasn't the easy victory they had expected. The humans were not just fighting for survival. They were fighting with a purpose. They had something the Deathworlders could never understand: the will to protect their home, their families, and their future. Carrick felt the first true hint of fear that he had ever experienced. His army wasn't invincible. And now, it wasn't just the humans who were learning. He was too. Carrick's frustration had grown unbearable. The Deathworlders had always been the galaxy's most powerful force, feared by all. But now, in the face of human resistance, things were starting to unravel. What was supposed to be a simple conquest had turned into a battle of survival. Jacob, the human leader, had been quietly preparing for this moment for weeks. The Deathworlders had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, to learn, and most of all, to fight when their backs were against the wall. The tables were turning, and the humans had proven they were not to be taken lightly. In a hidden command center deep within Earth's largest city, Jacob gathered his team for their next move. The humans had already fought hard, and now they needed to take the fight to the Deathworlders. Their strategy was simple: use the enemy's strengths against them, confuse them, and strike fast when the opportunity came. "We've already shown them we won't back down," Jacob said, looking at the faces of his battle-hardened crew. "Now we need to make them pay for every step they take on our soil. They think they know how to fight, but we're going to show them what it really means to fight for your home." He wasn't wrong. The Deathworlders had become overconfident. They had taken countless cities and wiped out military bases, but they hadn't expected the humans to strike back with such force. Now, the Deathworlders were starting to see the cracks in their armor. In the middle of the night, a team of humans launched a surprise attack on one of the Deathworlders' primary supply lines. It was a risk, but the humans had nothing left to lose. They hit fast, using every advantage they had: familiar terrain, surprise, and their ability to move unseen through the shadows. As Carrick reviewed the damage done by the attack, he seethed with rage. "How are they doing this?" he muttered. His warriors, the proud Deathworlders, had never faced an enemy like this. Humans weren't running. They weren't hiding. They were fighting back with everything they had. "Sir, we've lost contact with several of our scout units," Zora reported, her tone grim. "It looks like they've set traps along the supply routes. We're not sure how many of our forces have been caught." Carrick clenched his fists. This wasn't supposed to be how this invasion played out. The humans were supposed to break. They were supposed to flee in fear. Instead, they were turning the tables, using guerrilla tactics and traps that had made the Deathworlders question their own strategy. Meanwhile, Jacob's team had been making headway. Every victory, no matter how small, was pushing the Deathworlders back. The humans were learning, adapting, and overcoming their own limitations. Every time they fought, they gained more knowledge, more skills, and more confidence. Jacob stood before a group of his soldiers, looking out at the smoldering wreckage of the last battle. "This is our chance. The Deathworlders think they're invincible, but we're proving them wrong every day. We've shown them that we're not just going to fall. We're going to fight for every inch of this planet." There was no turning back now. The humans had gone from being helpless survivors to active combatants in a war they never wanted, and the Deathworlders were starting to feel the pressure. As the humans continued to push back, Carrick ordered his forces to launch a full-scale assault on Earth's largest cities. He was determined to crush this rebellion once and for all. But he knew something had changed. The humans weren't just resisting. They were fighting like they had something to lose. and Carrack wasn't sure how far they would go to protect it. The battle had only just begun, but one thing was clear. Humanity was not going down without a fight, and the Deathworlders were beginning to realize just how big a mistake they had made. As the humans prepared for the next wave, they knew they had to keep up the pressure. Jacob's voice echoed in their ears. "We are not the weaklings they think we are. We will fight until there's nothing left. They'll see what happens when you push humanity too far." But the Deathworlders weren't ready to give up just yet. They were preparing their own counterattack, one that would test humanity's limits. It was a fight for survival, and both sides were about to push their forces to the limit. The Deathworlders were relentless, and they weren't used to losing. But the humans had a fire in them now, a fire they hadn't known they possessed. The war had moved beyond survival. It was now about proving to the galaxy that humanity could not be easily defeated. Carrack stood in the command center of his fleet, looking at the tactical maps. His forces had suffered severe losses in the last few weeks, but the Deathworlders were still a powerful force. They had weapons, ships, and technology far beyond anything humanity had ever seen. And yet, every time they attacked, the humans seemed to be one step ahead. "They're still at it," Zara said, pointing to the screen. "They're hitting our supply lines again. We can't keep up with this kind of guerrilla warfare." Carrack clenched his fists, his anger building. How could such a small and weak species pose such a threat? The humans were supposed to be easy to crush, their cities mere stepping stones to victory. Yet they fought back with unexpected tactics, attacks on their own terms. Every time the Deathworlders thought they were winning, humanity found a way to fight harder. Jacob had a plan, one that he hoped would bring the fight directly to the Deathworlders. The humans knew they had to make a bold move, something that would force the Deathworlders to reconsider their invasion. It was time to go on the offensive. Jacob's forces had been quietly gathering strength. They had taken back several cities, reclaimed lost ground, and begun to form a united front. The death toll for the Deathworlders was rising, and even their greatest warriors were starting to question the cost of this invasion. The human fleet, hidden deep within Earth's atmosphere, was ready to strike. This would be their most dangerous move yet. If they failed, there would be no coming back. But if they succeeded, it could turn the tide of the entire war. "Are we ready?" Jacob asked his commanders, his eyes focused and determined. "Yes," one of them replied. "We've secured the equipment, the supplies. We're ready to hit them where it hurts." Jacob nodded. The plan was simple but risky. The humans would use their own ships, modified with human ingenuity, and attack the Deathworlders' main battle fleet. They would use hit-and-run tactics, taking advantage of the Deathworlders' arrogance. Humanity knew they couldn't win by strength alone. They needed to be smarter, faster, and more unpredictable. "Let's show them what we're made of," Jacob said. The battle began before the Deathworlders could even react. Jacob's forces hit fast, launching surprise attacks from every direction. The Deathworlders were stunned. They had expected a direct assault, not these unpredictable strikes. The humans used the terrain of their planet to their advantage, hiding in the atmosphere and attacking with laser precision. Their ships moved like shadows, striking at weak points in the Deathworlders' fleet. In the chaos of the battle, Carrack's fury boiled over. "How are they doing this?" he shouted. "How can they be everywhere at once?" The Deathworlders' ships were large and powerful, but they lacked the speed and agility of the humans' small, fast craft. The humans had crafted their ships to be efficient, using their smaller size and speed to evade the Deathworlders' powerful weapons. Every time the Deathworlders tried to strike back, the humans were already gone, disappearing into the void of space. Jacob's forces attacked again and again, inflicting serious damage on the Deathworlders' fleet. The humans were relentless, each strike designed to weaken the Deathworlders' forces and push them back. With every victory, the Deathworlders' confidence continued to erode. This isn't possible," Carrack muttered, staring at the display screen. His forces were in disarray, their carefully planned attacks disrupted by the humans' unpredictability. Zara, standing beside him, looked at the screen with wide eyes. They're everywhere. We can't keep up. They've turned the tide. The Deathworlders had always thought they were unbeatable. Their warriors were unmatched in strength, and their technology was the best in the galaxy. But the humans had something that the Deathworlders had never considered: resourcefulness. Humanity was not a species that would give up, no matter the odds. Every time the Deathworlders thought they had won, the humans came back harder. The tide was turning in favor of humanity. But the Deathworlders weren't giving up yet. Karek knew they had to act quickly before they were completely overwhelmed. He called for reinforcements from the homeworld, but even as he did, he couldn't shake the feeling that the humans were changing the course of this war. The human advantage. A shocking revelation. The battle raged on. Humanity had managed to land blow after blow against the Deathworlders, but the war was far from over. Karek stood in the command room of his flagship, staring at the massive holographic display in front of him. His fleet had taken a heavy hit, and every day the humans seemed to come up with new strategies that made it harder to keep up. "We underestimated them," Karek said, his voice low and filled with frustration. "These humans are not what we thought. They're not just lucky. They're better than us in ways we never imagined." Zara, the second in command, watched the screens nervously. "Their tactics, it's like they can predict our moves. We've never seen anything like this before." It was true. The Deathworlders' once feared military superiority was now being chipped away by the humans. Every time they thought they had outsmarted the humans, the Earthlings seemed to find a way to strike harder, faster, and more efficiently. "We thought we were the only Deathworlders," Karek muttered. "But these humans, they fight with a passion we never considered." Across the galaxy, in secret military bunkers, humanity's leaders were working tirelessly to reveal the full potential of their military strategy. The humans had been forced to think outside the box. They had been cornered, underestimated, and pushed to the edge. But that was when they became the most dangerous. In an underground command center on Earth, General Jacob was meeting with his team. The war had taken a heavy toll, but he refused to back down. He had a shocking revelation that could turn the tide completely in humanity's favor. "Everyone, listen up," Jacob said, his voice calm but filled with determination. "I've been studying our latest victory against the Deathworlders. We've been using our unpredictability, our adaptability. But there's something else, something they don't understand about us." His team leaned in, eager for the next phase of their plan. "What is it, sir?" one of the commanders asked. Jacob paused for a moment. "We've been playing into their arrogance. The Deathworlders assume that they are the superior warriors, that they are the Deathworlders of the galaxy. But we're not just surviving. We're adapting, evolving, and fighting in ways they can't even predict. It's not about brute strength. It's about intelligence, strategy, and the will to never give up." The room was silent as the generals absorbed the weight of Jacob's words. He was right. Humanity's strength was not in overwhelming force, but in its ability to outthink, outsmart, and outblast. The Deathworlders' arrogance had made them blind to humanity's true potential. It was time to make them realize just how much they had underestimated the humans. "We're going to show them," Jacob continued, his voice gaining strength. "We're going to hit them where it hurts the most. Their pride." Karek's frustration had reached a boiling point. The human attacks were relentless, and they were becoming more sophisticated with every strike. His fleet had been weakened, and the reinforcements from the homeworld had not arrived yet. His options were running out. "The humans are smarter than we thought," Karek said, pacing back and forth. "We can't keep reacting to them. We need to take control before they gain too much momentum." "Sir, we've received intel," Zara said, walking up to Karek with a worried look on her face. "The humans are preparing for something big. They've been assembling their forces." Karek narrowed his eyes. "What are they planning?" Zara hesitated before speaking. We believe they're going to launch a massive strike. But this time, it's different. They're not just aiming at our fleet. They're going to target our homeworld. If we don't stop them, they could cripple our entire war effort." Carrick's jaw tightened. If the humans were targeting the Deathworlders' homeworld, it could shift the balance of power completely. The Deathworlders had never imagined that humans, who had been regarded as a lesser species, would ever have the capability to strike directly at their core. "We have no choice," Carrick said, turning toward his fleet commanders. "Prepare the defenses. We're going to meet them head-on." Meanwhile, on Earth, Jacob's forces were gearing up for what would be their boldest move yet. They had learned all they could from the Deathworlders' weaknesses, and now they were ready to strike in a way that would make them rethink everything they knew about humanity. Jacob knew the risk was huge. If they failed, humanity's war for survival would be over. But if they succeeded, the Deathworlders would know the truth. They had no idea who they were dealing with. The truth was that humanity had been underestimated, and that had been the Deathworlders' biggest mistake. The tension in the galaxy was unbearable. The war between humanity and the Deathworlders had reached a critical point, and both sides knew that the next move would decide the outcome. The Deathworlders, who once believed themselves to be the most powerful warriors in the galaxy, were now feeling the full weight of their underestimation of humanity, and humanity was ready to prove that it had learned everything it needed to win. General Jacob stood in the heart of Earth's command center, staring at the massive holographic map. His team surrounded him, their faces grim but filled with determination. The time for waiting was over. They had learned the Deathworlders' tactics, discovered their weaknesses, and now humanity was about to make its boldest move. "Are we ready?" Jacob asked, his voice calm but heavy with responsibility. "Yes, sir," answered Commander Lai, one of the best tacticians in humanity's fleet. "Our forces are in position, and we've got the element of surprise on our side. They won't see us coming." Jacob nodded, but his mind was racing. The Deathworlders had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, to strategize, and now they were about to feel the full force of that mistake. "It's not just about defeating them," Jacob said quietly, his eyes fixed on the map. "We need to make them realize that they were never the only Deathworlders. We need to show them that humanity is a force to be reckoned with, a force that can't be beaten." Zara, the second in command of the Deathworlder fleet, watched nervously from the bridge of her ship. The humans had caught them off guard once again. Their bold moves were unlike anything she had expected. She had never seen an enemy that adapted so quickly, that could learn and evolve faster than any other species in the galaxy. "Commander Zara, we've received new intel," an officer reported. "The humans are mobilizing for an attack on our homeworld. They're gathering their strongest forces, and they're planning something big." Zora's heart sank. This was the moment she had feared. If the humans attacked the Deathworlders' homeworld, the consequences would be catastrophic. Not only would it cripple their entire fleet, but it would also send a message to every race in the galaxy that humanity was not just a survivor. They were a threat. "All hands on deck," Zara ordered. "We can't let them reach our homeworld. Deploy the fleet, full force. We'll show them that the Deathworlders are not to be underestimated." As the Deathworlders prepared for their final stand, Jacob's fleet was already moving into position. It was a daring plan, one that could either crush the Deathworlders or end humanity's fight for survival. There was no middle ground. The battle would take place in the shadow of the Deathworlders' homeworld, a place rich with resources but heavily defended. Humanity's forces had to be precise, quick, and deadly. The fate of their survival depended on it. In the depths of space, two fleets, one full of overconfidence and arrogance, the other driven by survival and strategy, prepared to collide in a showdown that would shape the future of the galaxy. Back on Earth, Jacob's team watched the screens, waiting for the signal to launch the final attack. The tension was palpable. Every move they made had to be flawless. One mistake could cost them everything. We're going to hit them hard and fast, Jacob said, his voice steady despite the weight of the decision. This is it. Humanity's future is on the line. We show them who we really are. As the first wave of humanity's ships launched from their hangars, the Deathworlders began their counterattack. The space between the two fleets was shrinking, and with each passing second, the stakes grew higher. Jacob's fleet wasn't just a collection of ships. It was a symbol of humanity's will to survive. It was a reminder to the galaxy that humans had been underestimated for too long. They were a force to be reckoned with, and this battle would prove it. General Jacob watched as the Deathworlders' flagship started to falter. "We've got them now," he said. "Focus all fire on their flagship. It ends here." A surge of energy blasted from humanity's ships, striking the Deathworlders' flagship with a devastating blow. The massive vessel shook, its shields failing, and its engines sputtering out of control. The crew on board scrambled to respond, but it was clear the battle was lost. "Commander Lai, prepare the final assault. We need to take the homeworld," Jacob ordered. Commander Lai nodded and activated the final phase. Human fighters, small but swift, darted through the debris and wreckage, heading for the heart of the Deathworlder homeworld. Their mission was simple: take the planet's core systems and shut down the Deathworlder's last hope. Back on the Deathworlder homeworld, the skies were filled with the chaos of battle. The surface trembled as humanity's forces descended, ready to claim victory. The Deathworlder's last line of defense had failed. The planet's once unshakable dominance was now a distant memory. Zara watched the destruction from her command center. "We've lost," she whispered, her voice heavy with defeat. The Deathworlders had fought with everything they had, but it wasn't enough. Humanity had proven itself to be a force unlike any other. They had endured, learned, adapted, and now they had claimed the victory that was once unimaginable. As the final explosions rocked the Deathworlder homeworld, Jacob allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. Humanity had done the impossible. They had fought their way to victory and had proven that survival wasn't just about strength. It was about strategy, adaptability, and the will to never give up. "We've won," Jacob said, his voice filled with pride. "The galaxy will never forget what humanity has done here today."